Dragon Ball Legends has had many anniversaries throughout the years, all the way leading up to the current 6th anniversary that is appearing in the next few weeks here and beginning within the next few weeks here. This video, though, is to go throughout each year, each basis of what has happened during the anniversaries of Dragon Ball Legends, whether it be the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and now upcoming the 6th, and the impact that each had, from the meta relevancy to the unit relevancy to the updates just as a whole of what it created, and more or less ranking how these anniversaries have affected the game from the 1st to the 5th and then going into the 6th, and hopefully the progress, as you could see, or again, hope for only if that is the case, has been a full net positive. Or was it a negative? Was it a roller coaster like this from 1st to 5th, or was it all smooth sailing from 1st? Everything went perfect throughout each anniversary year. Let's get into it. Enjoy the anniversary breakdown per year in Dragon Ball Legends history. The first anniversary of Dragon Ball Legends, the introduction of the Super Saiyan Blues. Prior, we did have obviously Super Saiyan God Goku and Beerus being kind of the paramount peak of the God Key tag. Obviously, the first anniversary does have a very hype reveal of Legends Limited Super Vegito, and again, the Super Saiyan Blues from the ROF movie, Super Saiyan Blue Goku, and then Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, and then the other side of it being the villains. You have Buhan dropping, and then you also have Golden Frieza. None of these characters, Super Saiyan Blue Goku, Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, Buhan, or Golden Frieza, had a full-on fledged out full character yet. Super Vegito obviously being a thing in that as well. The closest we had, I believe, the red transforming Golden Frieza, the base Frieza of his final form into the golden, was really kind of that, peak thing that we had at that time, but this was very new to everything that we were kind of going through. The motion of what things were happening was pretty unique. You had LF Goten as the pre-Annie bait, because his banner was a thing that if you summoned more on a daily thing, okay, you had a higher chance to get him, and then they paused the buffs. It was Sun Family, right? So you had FSK, you had Goten, and then they paused the buffs for Anniversary. They were like, okay, just hold on. Those two characters, they work together. You can still use them together, don't get me wrong. But they paused the buffs of pre-Annie to post-Annie, and then what they did in between was make the game, well, very strong for the Anniversary characters as just a whole. An example being the God Key tag itself. Once again, it got introduced with Super Saiyan God and Beerus, and that was great. Handy dandy, awesome stuff. But the banners, well, you got Super Saiyan Blue Goku banner, you got Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta banner, then you got Whis on the banner as well. I believe he was on Goku's banner, if I'm not mistaken. If not, he was on Vegeta's, obviously. But you got EX Whis, so that's blue, red, purple color synergy. God Key was one of the best teams in the game. You had Buhan, who dropped while he was not on a perfect team, and he was also green, so it wasn't ideal because, well, Super Vegeta was purple. You do have him where it's Yellow Cell, who was prior with FSK release, Green Buhan, and then the third at the time, I don't even know if there was really a perfect third for regen at that rate. Maybe you would just use the red cell, but yeah, regen, well, it did have decency. Buhan being very strong individually, there was clearly some bias toward the villain's gonna get shut down. The hero of the entire thing, obviously Super Vegeta, was gonna be rising up on every single sequence. And then LOE, probably the most daunting fate, in this anniversary only era of celebration, was not ideal. You were waiting till post-Annie with full power Frieza of the 1% unit to, kind of fix out what was going on there. But at least Golden Frieza individually was, again, a very good character, so it helped in that aspect of his team building for that later on kind of sequence, again, with LOE eventually getting better and better and better throughout kind of the months moving forward. But then the main man I keep mentioning, and we'll go on to full details here now, is Legends Limited Super Vegito. He dropped, and with him dropping, we actually got a free red base Vegito. So you might have thought, okay, well, OG Cell can handle Super Vegito, yellow to purple, that makes sense. But no, they drop a red defense type that can also lock in, and then boom, you're set up to kind of decimate everything. You also have transforming base to Super Saiyan Gogeta, which back then was a very strong character, even still, after a couple of months, because he was one of the strongest. He released, and he's one of the strongest. Purple DBS Broly, one of the strongest on his release. Base to Super Saiyan Gogeta, one of the strongest on his release. It's not going to be a thing where it's just going to age out. And then you look at it once again, that's blue, red, purple color synergy. So with God Key having that same exact thing, so they were getting countered by God Key, but it was fusions on top because they had that same color synergy. Regen can't handle it, right? Buhan's getting screwed over by a new LF. Then you have Cell, who we get locked in by Red Vegito. And by the way, Red Vegito, not, referring to Zenkai's or anything like that, probably one of the best free-to-play just outright units because his synergy and what he did to make LF Super Vegito have such high value. Like, he had high value regardless, but he had highest value because that character released. There wouldn't be a more perfect release of synergistic free-to-play units with an LF ever, I would say. Like, that just happened perfectly. Maybe Pan, Red Pan, because she was technically free-to-play from Login to Blue Beast, but look how many years later that is. Yeah, no, they were cooking up a storm thing like Super Vegito, OG Cell exists, we gotta have a savior complex for him. So Red Base Vegito, come on down. And, well, yeah, Fusions was decimating and dominating throughout it all. Once again, I do want to, stress the importance here of the hype factor. I do think that is a thing that matters very highly in Anniversaries, and this being the first one that obviously happened. People were, gassing this up. There was a tournament that was happening, and I believe the winner of the tournament was literally playing a developer. And then from there, you saw, well, Legends Limited Super Vegito, and everyone was on it. Me personally, I actually started playing the game because I saw the tournament itself. I was like, oh, let's get into this. And like 2 days prior to the anniversary actually dropping in game, I was on the game. And then that's where it all began for me. This kind of interest in a Dragon Ball Legends because, well, if, this is a sequence we're going through, these are the banners, these are the kind of goods that we get to see. It was very interesting. It was very unique to its time. And I would think the execution on the anniversary of its hype factor, of everything else, kind of the baseline celebration of like the God versus Super Vegito, is an interesting concept they followed through on. It might even seem to be the case for the 6th anniversary coming up here as well, with everyone saying God Goku, Super Vegito kind of happening again. That would be a cool follow-up. But 1st anniversary, with everything they're kind of involving with banners, pretty solid. You have, again, there was no baseline for banners because this was the 1st anniversary. Banners were solid. The PvE, I'm not gonna ever gas up the PvE, but there was no terrible PvE at that point, right? It was just kind of annoying stuff they had to play in PvE, but it was better than having no events, right? They released events to do. PvP had some diversity again. You look at the anniversary units. You had God as a tag. You had Regen, kind of copium amount of usage there. And you had Fusion, so at least 3 different teams could kind of spawn from the anniversary itself, which was a nice little treat. And you also had, maybe not full-on hybrid, but Sun Family to an extent from prior to Annie, because FSK, Goten, and then eventually Namek Goku. I believe, 2 months later or a month later was that next LF, so you had diversity, right? 3 to 4 different teams kind of by the end of the anniversary, kind of leading into the post-anniversary setting of what's coming out next. And it was a nice little experience where Legends didn't completely alienate other tags, which they have done in post-anniversaries or during anniversaries moving forward. 1st anniversary, not the perfect success, I would say. I do think there is a better, but I will not say it was bad. If I had to rate it on a scale of 1 through 10, I would say 1st anniversary was a solid 7. And I think that's good. For 1st anniversary, they didn't do everything perfect, but I do think they allowed a good baseline foundation for things to move forward. The thing is, unfortunately, with 2nd anniversary, there kind of is a hurting in the department of teams, where it's much more force-feeding you to do this, that, or the other, and there's one very strong powerhouse instead of 3 to 4 very strong powerhouses. You have one surpass the others, but We'll get into that moving forward with second anniversary. But first, happy with the result, happy with how it went, and happy with the actual hype factor behind it because got me into the game, got me interested, and look where we are now. Let's get into second anniversary.
Right, so my name is Akashi and I'm doing this on a request per Dugo. He wanted me to cover the second anniversary, well I kind of chose to do so because Vegito Blue is my favorite of all time. I've even got the blue cell right now, so shout out to him for having me on the channel. Today I will be talking about the second anniversary. Let's get into this. So first thing we got to talk about is the Legends Limited that dropped. Now this guy was the only Legends Limited that dropped in the second anniversary, but he was the headliner and honestly one of the most dangerous units we've ever had in Dragon Ball Legends history. If anybody knows this guy, back in those times, if you did not have this guy, you were sweating in PvP. And I'm not even sweating, that's even cutting it low. You were literally dead, you were unable to play. No matter what you had, Vegito Blue was a one-man army. His ultimate one-shotted pretty much anybody, and his combo extension was so long. Now back then, cover no was not really a thing. It didn't need to be a thing because most people didn't have many cover changes, and if they did, it's very easy to predict. So 1-2 drop combo, this guy's extending his combos for his strikeouts. I'm sure most of you are familiar with his kit. For the time, it was truly generational, and if I remember correctly, they had to literally change the whole game mechanics. I believe they added certain mechanics so that the Vegito Blue literally wouldn't be as dominant as he was. Now a lot of people do consider the second anniversary probably the worst anniversary we've ever had, and it's for good reason, to be honest. The PvP experience was pretty terrible, and the banners as a whole, which I'll get into in a bit, weren't the greatest. So I don't even mind that opinion. I'm not even against it. I'd argue it probably was the worst. However, I think for me, what makes an anniversary is the units, and if you like the units ultimately, I think generally you will vibe with the anniversary more. So for me, having Vegito Blue as one of my favorite, no, if not my favorite character of all time, I'm not going to explain why, but just know that that's the case. I was very happy, as you'd imagine, and I had insane luck from, in my personal experience, I always have insane luck. Gotten pretty high stars just off my first set of Chrono Crystal. I didn't even have a lot, like 20k as well. But cool, that's enough about Vegito Blue. He was the headliner. Let's actually get into the whole anniversary as well. So it actually dropped with 2 banners. There was this Future banner and a GT banner, but Vegito Blue was on both sides. I very much like this format where they literally just have one Legends Limited, but 2 banners. And no matter which one you summon on, you'll be starring up the Legends Limited, of course, but then you can also get which 1% Sparkings you want. So on this side, the Terror of God banner, we had Trunks Rage, and Trunks Rage is a very good unit, well, at least back then. He was one of the few units in the Dragon Ball Legends history that were able to tank full Rising Rushes. That isn't something that's available nowadays. The fact that he could tank Rising Rushes from full health was insane, and his ultimate, if you built him up correctly, seriously hits. Fusion Zamasu here, he's also a unit that's not to be slept on back then. He was doing crazy damage, I believe blast damage more than anything else, but his ultimate is very, very sneaky and could do a lot of damage too. Let's go to the GT side. GT side, Red Omega Shenron was just super annoying to deal with in general. He would actually do quite a bit of damage, and him having the ultimate arts, everybody has ultimate arts pretty much, but his one for some reason just nuked people, so it's very, very unexpected. And we've got Forku here. In my opinion, I think he was the worst out of all the 1% Sparkings that dropped out of these 2 banners, but he had something that was very good, and it's when he hits his ultimate, he's able to heal a lot. So you might think you're on your way to take him out, but then he really just hit our ultimate. And the fact that he was green gave him a good standing against obviously this Menace Vegito Blue. So those were the 2 banners that dropped at the start. I think they also dropped this EX Gogeta. I don't know if he was freshly new, but EX Gogeta was like, wow. People were running him over a lot of the 1%. Like, he was insane, man. Shout out EX Gogeta. Super Vegeta didn't cook like that, but EX Gogeta definitely did. Cool. Let's move forward. There was this other banner, and I'm not going to lie, past the main 2 banners, it felt like the anniversary just didn't vibe that well. But this banner just had no aura. Just look at it. Come on now. Like, imagine they dropped the Vegito Blue and they followed up with like a banner of like this. Like, come on, bruh. Nobody's vibing with this banner like that. Even though the idea of like Kaioken Goku is really, really good, the units just weren't like that, man. If you guys remember Pycon, there's the legendary Pycon meme where he does the movement that he does and he just gets one-shotted. If you've seen that meme, you will know how disastrous this banner releasing was. There was no real hype to it. The units didn't have any good standing. It was just a terrible decision overall. Nowadays, they drop like multiple Legends Limiteds, but then they decided to just drop like a regular Rising banner. I was like, oh man, get this out of here. But cool. The last banner that we had for the second anniversary, and forgive me if I got the order wrong, but we had this Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan banner for Goku and Vegeta. Now, Goku, he wasn't that great. His animations were okay, but I think people were mimicking them at the time, like saying that they weren't that great. They were like a copy. But Vegeta, boy, make Vegeta units great again, man. Recently, we have got Nappa and Vegeta, but this guy is like the pinnacle of Vegeta units, bro. This guy was carrying Future on his back. And Future didn't even need the carry because they already had Vegito Blue. This guy here was dangerous. Dangerous. Amazing support for Vegeta Clan, for Future. Very, very valuable unit to have. A lot of people wanted this guy more than anything in the anniversary, if it's not Vegito Blue. So, shout out to him. But let's go through the events. Now, I don't have much to say about the events. The events weren't anything like, ooh, to die for. But what I will say is that they do those cutscenes where they make custom animations with the unique storyline for the anniversary. They had one in the second anniversary, and it was very, very intriguing. They had Omega Shenron, Super Saiyan 4 Goku. They had Vegito Blue, of course. And it was just a good storyline overall. Trunks Rage as well. Good storyline overall. Lots of people enjoyed it. But you had the typical like events and whatnot. So, for example, you get those adventures, the chance time, state your wish, main story buffs and whatnot, so you can easily go through if you're new to the game. Lots of things just drop in. The challenge battles, generally just basic anniversary stuff. They really can't compare to nowadays, but obviously for the time, it was super good in my opinion. So I'd say the anniversary overall was enjoyable, but again, for me, it's always more down to the units. The events are obviously a big part of it, because once you're done with the excitement of the units, unless they're like your number one, you really need something else to do, no matter what. So I can understand why people obviously see this anniversary as not good, because the meta was just insanely bad. You guys actually nowadays, these new gen players cannot fathom fighting Vegito Blue. This guy was an absolute menace. Now, if I was going to give this anniversary a rating out of 10, because I liked Vegito Blue, hey, I'm giving it a cool little 8, and that's still pretty high. Just off me personally liking Vegito Blue, I'm giving it a personal 8. But if I'm being unbiased and not ignoring how terrible of a time it was for the game, people were, I think, review bombing the game as well. It's one of the few times in Legends history where people were going on the App Store, iTunes, at the Apple App Store and the Google Play App Store, jobless behavior, and writing the most devious replies under the review for the game. It was like, oh man, people were really hating the game, saying the game was gonna die. The game obviously did not die, because it's the hit mobile game Dragon Ball Legends, making millions every single year. But of course, if you know people are review bombing the game, there has to be some madnesses going on. The game can't be at 100% capacity. But so naturally, it should be like really like a 4 at best, the second anniversary. But I love Vegito Blue, so I'm going to double that and give it an 8. But of course, you guys will have your own opinions. That's pretty much all I've got to say regarding the second anniversary. It's a good memory to look back on, but to experience it, I can't exactly say that. And I know a lot of people will not agree with that. But of course, leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Go, appreciate you having me. And for the rest of you guys, enjoy the rest of the video.
Hello everyone, Liber here. So, 3rd year anniversary. This is an interesting one and personal favorite for obvious reasons, of course. So, after what it felt like the most miserable celebration of all time, the absolute snooze fest 2nd year anniversary was, which almost felt like another normal month in the hit mobile game Dragon Ball Legends. The Legends team definitely had to step up their game for the 3rd year anniversary after hearing so many complaints about the 2nd year. The 3rd year anniversary released in total 17 new units across 3 banners, which was unprecedented at the time. The value of every single one of those banners was just naturally extremely high. Taking the releases from the start here, we had Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta alongside the Ace and Nova Shenron as the 1%, which it made sound funny to a lot of people, but Ace and Nova Shenron were actually quite decent as 1% characters on their initial release, and even used in high rank PvP. Now, obviously with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, a lot of hype was behind this character, so lots and lots of people summoned on him, only to find out that he wasn't as strong as people would have hoped him to be. This is why a little later on, the devs realized that, and he was in need of a plat, because keep in mind, on the other banner, we had Corrupted Merged Zamasu, which in comparison to Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta on release, he was a god compared to him, a literal tower in front of him. Also, we had Vegeta Blue, which was also quite decent as a 1% sparking, and Kefla, which she was okay, but nothing special there. Also was 2 EXs released per part 1 banner, so we had 4 EXs in total, but none of them so far had any impact in the game until they dropped a part 2 banner with LF, Revival, Gohan, Bojack movie, Super Saiyan Trunks, Bojack himself, and the rest of the Galaxy soldiers that came with them, Buzin, Goku, Zangia, and Bido? I don't know how to pronounce his name, but yeah. So things quite changed when that banner dropped, because Goku is still considered to be the most powerful extreme character in the game to ever release, because he was the literal nail in the coffin for the very much known to everyone Red Father-Son Kamehameha Gohan. He was such a big counter to hybrids that the guy literally made everyone structure teams around him to deal with, every hybrid Saiyan in the meta, and rightfully so. He became a core unit on the movie Saga team. Goku still terrifies me to this day. Now, let's talk about my boy, LF Revival Gohan, which he kinda came out of left field with his release. Not a lot of people, including me, expected him to drop, because keep in mind, the yellow transforming Gohan, his version 1 technically, was aged out at that point, but not to the point where you think in a year and a half later he would get his LF. So it definitely was a nice surprise there. The not so nice surprise though was that this kid was just absolutely insane. Being a revival unit, he was one of the tankiest units at that time. He literally could not die. He pretty much gapped the entire game so much that made any previous releases seem like minions in front of him. So naturally his damage inflicted numbers and transforming level stats along with his infinite stacking made him terrifying, and everything combined made my boy age phenomenally well, and he was considered top tier even through the 4th year anniversary. He had one of the most valuable banners of all time. You could literally build an entire team of his banner alone, and that team was really top tier. At that time it was the best team in the game, with him Bojack, Goku, and speaking of Bojack, by the way, oh my god, another tank god on release, literal Juggernaut power, and I made so many plays with his Vanish removal ability, and he also had the damage to turn games around. Even the Super Saiyan Trunks was quite tanky. He had the damage. On release, that Super Saiyan Trunks, I was seeing him everywhere, and even today, his Z ability has aged so well. Like, you can literally bench the guy and have like 53% strike attack. Quite insane. No Competition Movies was at its best back then. One of the greatest banners of all time on that second part of the anniversary, and also the events. The events were just so stacked. We had back-to-back raids every week. Everyone was excited back then. So many people were playing compared to what we were expecting for the 2nd year anniversary. This brought back so many people into the game, and this is why the 3rd year anniversary is one of the most successful anniversaries the game ever had.
What's going on, guys? Playbox here, and I will be covering the 4th anniversary of Dragon Ball Legends. So let's just hop straight into it, right? But before we talk about the 4th anniversary, I want to kind of discuss a bit about how it was leading up towards the 4th anniversary. So prior to the 4th anniversary, we did have Legends Festival 2021, which many people would argue was the most hyped celebrations to date, right? I personally would say the 1st anniversary was, but many people would say the Legends Festival 2021 was the best one. So having that as the last celebration going into the 4th anniversary, there's a lot of momentum, a lot of hype, a lot of expectations that people have for this next celebration, right? So they have a responsibility to kind of meet that expectation. So as we move along the year, we also did get the hack of Toei animation, where they had some sort of hack. I don't really know the details of it, but there was a hack, and this probably did delay a couple stuff. I do think it delayed the movie Dragon Ball Super Superhero. It was supposed to release back in May, and then it got pushed to, I believe, around June. So this hack from Toei kind of broke some scheduling. and might have caused some scheduling problems for Legends moving into the anniversary, right? So that's something to keep in mind of when talking about the anniversary. So I just felt like it was something to be mentioned, right? One other thing I want to mention before we hop into the anniversary is we had a leak for the units of Part 1. For those of you who were there playing during the 4th anniversary, we did get the leak for MUI Goku. It was through some social media thing where if you entered the URL and you change a bunch of stuff, it was like some countdown information, and if you change the URL code or something, you were able to see that MUI Goku was in fact leaked as the headlining anniversary unit, which is kind of crazy because if you guys haven't played this game for a long time, you know that every single UI Goku, whether it be Sign or MUI, has been leaked in some form. So MUI being leaked was pretty funny to say the least, right? And then other than the MUI leak, we did, this is important to mention, but we did get the tag droids as the LF prior to the anniversary. This is important because the tag droids were a unit that was very, very oppressive. You can kind of think of them as like the 2022 version of Super 17. Like Super 17 right now is a very dominant unit, and he's an LF unit, and he's surrounded by Ultra units, and him being an LF unit being that dominant is kind of interesting, right? And the tag droids basically follow that similar pattern where the tag droids were an LF unit and they were very powerful and they were surrounded by units like Ultra Kaioken Goku, Ultra Super Gogeta. So it's kind of that anomaly unit, and moving into the anniversary, this unit is going to have a significant role in this anniversary in terms of meta, so it's something to point out before we enter into the anniversary. Now the anniversary rolls around and it does not start off well. We only get one banner for Part 1. This banner only includes MUI Goku and a transforming Super Saiyan into Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta. Now this is something kind of weird because for the past 3 anniversaries, we've always been greeted by 2 banners for Part 1. And so for them to just drop a single banner with only 1 LF and 1 Sparky unit is not very good, because it really gives a feel that it's just a regular monthly banner, because prior to the Part 1, we've just been getting monthly LF banners, some of them having a 1% Sparking unit, some of them not having it. And for them to just do that for Part 1 of the anniversary was kind of underwhelming, right? Another issue with this is that since they're only dropping 1 LF and 1 Sparking, keep in mind that this 1% Sparking unit wasn't even that meta relevant. We waited so long for a new transforming unit, and it ended up being Vegeta. Vegeta obviously getting the short end of the stick every single time, and he was not a meta relevant unit, which means that MUI Goku was the only meta relevant unit that was dropped. MUI Goku himself was actually very, very good. He was extremely hyped, so they got that down. He was, like I said, very good, introduced some very annoying mechanics, and of course, being a UI Goku, he has the stalling, dodging, unique gauge, so he kind of promoted a passive gameplay, so his playstyle wasn't really ideal. But even with MUI Goku dropping, the tag droids that I mentioned were still considered, for the most part, better than MUI Goku. Now, you could obviously argue which one's better, but the fact that the anniversary unit dropped and he was still kind of overshadowed, quote-unquote overshadowed, by a LF unit that dropped prior to the anniversary was kind of, kind of underwhelming, right? You want your anniversary unit to be the strongest, and although MUI Goku was very strong, there was still some debates on who was stronger and which one was stronger between the two, right? And of course, coupled with his passive gameplay, it was kind of annoying, right? Now let's move on to Part 2, and Part 2, once again, they go on to drop another single LF banner with a 1% Sparking. This time, it was Super Saiyan 3 Dragon Fist Goku. Now, Dragon Fist Goku was a very good unit as well, but just like MUI Goku, he wasn't really considered the best unit, obviously. I think he was around the realm of top 3, top 5. It was probably, your top 3 would be, Droids, MUI, and then Dragon Fist Goku, right? So that was, he was a meta relevant unit. But the issue with these 1% Spark, these single LF banners, is that since there's only one quote-unquote meta-relevant unit dropping at a time, the meta isn't drastically changing and something that you would expect for these major celebrations. If you look back, most of the time when we have these major celebrations, the meta would be shaken up quite a bit with such an abundance of units being dropped. But since we're only getting monthly LF banners for the anniversary, the meta wasn't adapting or evolving fast enough for there to feel like a bit more excitement in PvP, which I think that was a sentiment many people shared. But at least in this case, we got a 1% sparking Tapion, who introduced a new mechanic called Final Counter, where, you know, if you kill the unit, he deals damage to your opponent's team and whatever the case may be. This unit was actually very good. It was a very, very good 1% sparking unit, much better than the transforming Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, and he was meta relevant. He was good on movies, he was good on whatever the case may be, right? Powerful opponent. So this was a very good sparking. So this was a step above the MUI Goku banner. So that's good. Then we get the Zenkai for Vegito Blue, the 2nd anniversary Vegito Blue. This was a very anticipated Zenkai that they've been holding on for quite a while, and they finally dropped. And unfortunately, they didn't really change much in his Zenkai, you know. We all know the iconic Sapphire Protector of the Future unique ability. They really didn't change much. I believe they were maybe afraid to give him too much since his base kit, you know, was oppressive back in the day. But they definitely could have given him a lot more. And I guess they banked on him being carried by his team, because Fusion Warriors at the time were pretty decent, especially with the next release that we're going to be talking about. Fusion Warriors skyrocketed into being a top 1 team, top 3 team, whichever you want to say. And I guess they were banking on that, but that kind of hurt his longevity, because once the 2 other Ultras that were ran around, I guess I kind of spoiled what was going to be the part 3, but once his 2 other teammates were power up, then he's gonna, you know, pretty much not do anything, right? So that was a major, I guess, controversial Zenkai, because they didn't really change much and really banked on his base kit being the determining factor and his boosted stats. But, you know, it is what it is. Then we move on to part 3, the final part of the anniversary, where they dropped 8 Ultra units, similarly to Legends Festival 2021. This is our 3rd summonable Ultra unit. And since they went with Super Gogeta for Legends Festival, you know they have to drop Super Vegito. And if you guys know me, you know I love Super Vegito. He's literally the icon of my YouTube channel. So Ultra Super Vegito dropped. And obviously, me being an extremely big Super Vegito fan, I'll be the first one to say that, in my personal opinion, they didn't cook enough with Super Vegito. Not only was his animation kind of lackluster for me personally, especially that copy-pasted fucking blast animation, but I just feel like they could have done a bit more with him. When he dropped, you know, I forgot if I had him at #1 spot, but it was still a debate on whether he was better than Ultra Super Gogeta that dropped 6 months ago. So I feel like they could have also made him a bit better meta-wise. And just keep in mind that the tag droids are still running around being the #1 unit. We are into the part 3 of the anniversary, and the tag droids still have an argument for being the #1 unit in the game. How does an LF unit that dropped prior to the anniversary remain the quote-unquote #1 unit in the game after all the anniversary units? The tag droids truly felt like a unit that was supposed to be dropped post-anniversary. And, you know, who knows? We don't have any confirmation or evidence of this, but they could have been a mix-up schedule due to the Toei hack. You know, Superhero was supposed to drop prior to the anniversary, and maybe they were planning to drop something during that month for Superhero. But since that was cancelled and delayed, they had to drop the tag droids because they had to somehow fix the scheduling problem. Who knows? There's no evidence for it, but that is something that many people thought was the reason for it, right? But Ultra Super Vegito, you know, he dropped. Fusion Warriors were really good. Blue, Yellow Fusion Warriors with Ultra Super Gogeta and Vegito Blue was a very good team. And then another team that emerged because of this was just straight up the 4th anniversary team with Dragon Fist Goku, MUI Goku, Ultra Super Vegito. That was a team that many people ran as well. And of course, Ultra Banners. There's not much to say about it. Ultra Banners just suck in general. No pity system whatsoever. So, you know, that is a downside to this banner. But this is we were expecting this. They were going to drop. They weren't going to make any changes. People were hopeful that they were going to make changes, but they weren't going to make any changes. So there's that, right? So overall, in terms of banner units, it wasn't really that great. They could have dropped a bit more units, but, you know, it is what it is. They did a good job with the hype factor of all these units. I also forgot to mention that Dragon Fist Goku also got some flack because his LF animation, or I guess his ultimate, was a reused animation from the summon animation, because there was obviously a Dragon Fist summon animation, and they basically Control-V that bullshit, Control-C, Control-V that bullshit into his ultimate. And, you know, many people didn't like that. At least his LF was kind of clean. The LF portion of it was clean. And, of course, that windscreen is beautiful. But, you know, many people didn't like the fact that it was a reused animation. And something to point out that down the line during Legends Festival 2022, they dropped a Trunks and Vegeta unit. and they kind of learned from their mistake in Dragon Fist, where they didn't just copy paste the Trunks and Vegeta animation from the summons. They actually completely redid the animation, which was good that they did that, but would have loved to see that for Dragon Fist as well. So overall, in terms of unit, like I said, the hype factor was there, but in terms of banner quality and banner format, it was not ideal. Next, if we talk about the PvP meta and just PvP in general during the anniversary introduced, well, not introduced, but it was split into 2 3-week-long PvP seasons, which is already annoying for most people. People do not like 3-week-long PvP seasons. And to make it even more fun, they added double RP, which made it even more fun for everyone. So obviously, this was not something that people enjoyed. People were constantly annoyed by these 3-week-long seasons, double RP, and constantly be checking your rank. I guess it was a way to incentivize people to play more, but it's just kind of annoying. The one good side or upside of this was that they did double the rewards for this PvP season, which was good. So if you actually think about it, a 3-week-long season with double the rewards is a bit better. So you can't really fault them on that, but it's just a common sentiment for people that it was very annoying having double RP 3-week-long PvP seasons. And I also touched upon this a bit during the breakdown of the banners, but since they were dropping single LF monthly banners, the PvP meta wasn't changing fast enough, therefore it was remaining at a kind of stale state, because we were only really getting one meta relevant unit at a time, maybe 2 if we're lucky, like the part 2 banner. So that was something. And of course, like I mentioned, the tag droids dropped a month prior, and they were still very dominant going into the anniversary, and they kind of overshadowed the anniversary units. Like, think about this. The tag droids, since they were red and reverse red, they were, type advantage over blue and yellow, right? You needed Ultra Super Gogeta and Ultra Super Vegeta to maintain priority, or I guess dominance over the tag droids, because you needed both colors. Like, that's kind of crazy that you need 2 Ultras to combat 1 LF unit, not even an Ultra unit, an LF unit, which was really bad, and further reinforces the idea that the tag droids, they probably were a unit that they were going to drop after the anniversary, right? They had no reason for them to drop it prior to them, because they were just ahead of their time, right? So that's pretty much it for the PvP meta. I kind of flip-flop between the meta and the banner units and kind of talked in between both of them. But outside of PvP, let's kind of talk about the PvE events, because, not everyone plays PvP, so we kind of need some PvE events also, right? So, just like any anniversary, we did get the cool story, the anniversary unique story events where they created a fun little story using the anniversary units. During this year was a pretty cool one where they had Broly fighting Gogeta Blue, and then Jiren fighting UI Goku, and then all 4 of them mix up together, different timelines and all that stuff. You had Broly versus Jiren, Goku versus Gogeta, all this cool stuff. So it was a very cool idea. And then at the end, we had the really cool cutscene where UI Sign Goku transferred into MUI Goku, and that was the main headlining unit of the anniversary. So that was a really nice event. I love all the story events that they do for these anniversaries, so that was a definite thumbs up, right? Then we got some free-to-play units from the Tournament of Power. We got Goku, Tia, and Krillin. Then their event was time-gated. Every day you had to play to get Z-Power. It was a very weird structure for the event, but it was their way of making people log in every day to play. It was weird, but it is what it is. It wasn't really worth it because the units kind of suck, just like most of the free-to-play units, which is weird because prior to the anniversary, they did drop a free-to-play yellow Trunks, Super Saiyan Trunks, and he was very good. And they should have kept that standard going into this anniversary for these free-to-play units, but they didn't, and those 3 were just pretty much trash, right? So there's that. And then we come over to the raids. Now, the raid might be the biggest controversial thing about this, because the first raid they dropped was abysmal. So the main problem the first raid had was that when you queue into the raid, you get these anniversary medals as drops, right? But for this raid, for whatever fucking reason, they made it so you needed a 6-star MUI Goku to get guaranteed drops for the anniversary medal. Simply having MUI Goku wasn't enough. You can't just have him at 3 stars, or if you had him at 3 stars, you need to Z-power him to 6 stars. If you had him below 6 stars, you were not guaranteed a drop. So what this means is, you can queue into a raid. If you have MUI Goku at 3 stars and you finish the raid, you're not guaranteed a raid medal. If you don't have MUI Goku, you have an even lower chance of getting those raid medals. That was just not okay. For people that get shafted, what the fuck are you supposed to do? You can go you could go theoretically 100 runs and just never get a raid medal, and then you're not getting you're not getting any CC, you're not getting the Z power, LFZ power. Like, what the fuck? That is just not okay. Now, fortunately for us, I guess fortunately for us, they fixed that and they made it so that, you know, your guarantee drops regardless of what you. I think you need to use like the free to play units or whatever. They fixed it so that you get a guarantee drop regardless of what unit you use. But they ended up fixing it, which was at least good. But that was just not it. Already people were pissed off that it was just one banner. Vegeta sucked. MUI Goku's the only banner, and then they dropped these raids for people to summon on MUI, but you need to have MUI to get the guaranteed drop. It was just overall a mess. Part 1 was a mess. So they fixed that for the second and third raid, which was nice, right? Another thing I want to talk about the raids, now even though they were bad at first, the rewards were very good. This was the first time that they actually introduced, like, you know, the 1,000 erasers in raids. Prior to that, they did not have that. Obviously, nowadays, every raid comes with like 1,000 erasers, the multi-Z power, all that stuff. So that was a byproduct of this initial raid. So these raids were the first time where we got 1,000 erasers, and it was nice, you know, for seeing such an abundance of erasers and all sorts of resources from the raid. It was nice, right? So that was very good. We also got a lot of LFZ power from these raids. If I'm not mistaken, we got like around 700 for each raid. So the raids after the first one, they ended up being really good. And, you know, obviously it's raid, can't really do much because people don't like co-op sucks, right? Co-op sucks. Any style of co-op gameplay just fucking sucks. So you can't really escape that. But if you get past that hurdle of co-op being trash, you know, the raids were pretty rewarding, right? So there's that. Then we have full power battle. During this time, full power battle was pretty damn hard. Nowadays, full power battle is pretty easy, but back then it was pretty hard and practically impossible if you didn't have the new units. You had to be very lucky. RNG had to be on your side, but those were some pretty hard full power battles if you didn't have the new units. And even with the new units, if you needed kind of the right RNG, it was a lot easier, but they weren't like super easy. So there's that. We had extreme battle, you know, the time gated a daily event. You know, it's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. You get those 10% sparking and LF tickets, which was nice. So there's that. And then story mode, I believe we got an update, but we didn't get an update for Shallot. At the time, we were still expecting Super Saiyan Blue Shallot, and it was, I believe, 2 years since we didn't get any sort of update for Shallot, so people were getting annoyed that Shallot wasn't getting an update. Little did they know that Shallot would have gotten an update the year after, and he wasn't that great either. So it is what it is, unfortunately. At that point, I'm pretty sure Shallot was supposed to drop during the 4th anniversary, and they just didn't, which sucks. But, you know, it is what it is. Another year with no Shallot update. It sucks, right? So there's that. And that's pretty much all the PvE events we got, you know. PvE events is not the strong suit for Legends, especially being a PvP-centric game. So it sucks, but it is what it is, right? They want to focus more on their PvP aspect because that's pretty much the reason why people pick up the game. They want to play PvP, right? So it is what it is. So that's pretty much the anniversary. If we were to sum it up, overall, it was very hype in terms of characters because the characters they did select were very extremely hype units, and they're units that people wanted. You know, Dragon Fist Goku was an anticipated unit. MUI Goku, obviously being the first MUI Goku we had, he's a very hype unit. Animation completely killed it. Ultra Super Vegito, one of the, you know, best money-making units of all time. He did numbers, of course. Me as a personal Vegito fan, I wish they could have done a bit more with him, but, you know, that's just me being biased towards him, right? Overall, there weren't enough new characters. This was probably the least amount of characters we got out of any anniversary in general, which sucked. But, you know, it is what it is. These less characters means less changes in the PvP meta, so it's not a good thing, right? You always want to start off your anniversary with a bang, and they didn't do that. Especially MUI Goku being leaked ahead of time was not nice. It just felt like regular monthly banners, and us being in the anniversary and nothing changed, it was kind of disappointing to say the least, right? They did, however, do a good job in providing strong units compared to last year, where the anniversary headline units, you know, weren't the greatest in terms of meta relevancy. So they did fix that and actually drop meta relevant units. But like I said, the tag droids was just looming around there, being a pre-anni unit. So that's something to consider. But they did do a good job in providing very strong units for this anniversary. So with that all said, I would say the 4th anniversary was probably on the lower end of anniversaries, probably around the realm of the 2nd anniversary. It was definitely not one of the greatest, but, you know, it is what it is. We move forward, and they definitely did a better job during the 5th anniversary.
Alrighty guys, as Zeke here, and I'm going to be talking about the 5th anniversary in Dragon Ball Legends. I am a free-to-play player, in case you guys don't know, so I am going to be giving you that free-to-play perspective, right? So let's go ahead and talk about the free-to-play things that we did get within that month of the 5th anniversary, right? So starting off strong, I believe we got like 30,000 CC within just that 1 month, which is absolutely, actually, no, I want to say it's insane. It is an insane amount, but I think that is starting to become the usual. I think the year before we actually got that same amount too, but that's always, that has to keep up, right? If we get anything less than 30,000 CC, I'm going to be pissed. We did get some free-to-play units, and they were pretty mid. Like, it was like, I think that's one thing that I was upset about. One thing that I would say is a con for the anniversary. Like, if you think about the anniversary free-to-play units, the only one that you guys probably come to mind for you guys is the free-to-play Super Saiyan Blue Green Vegeta. That dude was absolutely amazing. He was a complete powerhouse. Like, his damage was off the charts. Like, you go back and you look at a video of him now, and he does pretty good in terms of damage wise, right? Like, obviously he's lacking the utility, everything else. But then next to him, who did we get? We got Ultimate Gohan, the yellow Ultimate Gohan free to play, and he was terrible. Like, he was absolutely awful. Like, I think I saw people run him for like the 1 week of his release, and then never again, legit never again. And then I believe we also got the Green Cooler. He was decent. I'm not gonna go ahead and talk smack on that guy's name. I think he was actually pretty decent. And then we also, of course, the highlight for all free-to-play players was getting the Super Saiyan Blue Shallot. That's what I was the most excited for, right? Especially as a free-to-play player, you have to keep in mind, when you get a new transformation for Shallot, you expect that guy to be meta, right? You expect him to be maybe not top 10, but at least top 20. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, Super Saiyan Blue Shallot sucked. Like, the best thing about Super Saiyan Blue Shallot was getting Super Saiyan Blue Shallot, and that's it. It wasn't using him in PvP, because they slapped a unique gauge on my boy, and they called it a day. If you compare it to his Super Saiyan 3 release and his Super Saiyan God release, like that, those were way better, right? In terms of being PvP viable and stuff like that, right? And his animations were just not the best either. It was just disappointing overall. For something that we waited for a long time, like, I really expected a lot more. So I am going to call that an L for the anniversary. I have to. There's no other choice. And then straying away from the free-to-play aspect a little bit, I guess, here, as we did get the LF Zenkais. I know that there's nothing really free-to-play about LF units, but being able to turn an old unit into something viable is something beautiful, something that I do enjoy a lot. We did get the LF Zenkais for both the Sword of Hope Trunks and the Zenkai UI Goku. The Zenkai UI Goku, I honestly, he gets more playtime than most of the banner units that released for this anniversary today, right? Today. Like, if you compare them, like, with how many times are you seeing Zenkai UI Goku versus Casserole? Like, it's an overwhelming amount, right? Like, you're not seeing Casserole at all. You're probably seeing this dude more than the Yellow Jiren. You're probably seeing UI Goku more than Orange Piccolo, than the Gammas and stuff like that, right? Like, that's a great release right there. That's a W. And then even with the Sword of Hope Trunks, he was also a great release. I don't think you see him as much as the UI Goku, but I've used him quite a bit, and I would say he outlived the standard sparking units from the celebration as well. And then we also got like the non-stop raids and stuff like that comboed with the Bonanza. I forget what Bonanza exactly it was. Did the Bonanzas all feel the same to me? I get scammed either way, but that's always a good combination, right? Because you're just constantly getting the erasers from the non-stop raids, and you're constantly being able to just upgrade your equipment and stuff like that, right? And then you also have the Hoi Poi, and I think a lot of people have been upset with the Hoi Poi, because is this where it started? I'm pretty sure this is where it started to suck really, really bad, right? Since this anniversary, all the Hoi Pois have kind of sucked, low key, and so I think they're going to continue that trend of it just being absolutely not necessarily worthless. You can still get resources and stuff from it, but not as good as it used to be. It's just a shell of the Hoi Poi that we once knew. But now let's talk about the units itself, right? So we had part 1, we had the Go Frieza banner. We had Go Frieza on there, we had Yellow Jiren, we had Kiawe, we had Casserole, And then we had the 2 EX units, which are pretty much irrelevant, but we're going to focus on the sparking units here. Go Frieza. Oh my god, Go Frieza. What a unit. For a unit to last as long as Go Frieza has, like to this day, I think they did a phenomenal job on that, right? But there's a reason for that, and it's a point of controversy, right? So the reason why Go Frieza is so good to this day is because of that massive buff that they gave him. And I'm going to go ahead and say that that's a con. Like, I think that's a negative, right? Because at the time, he didn't really need a buff of that magnitude. He needed, yeah, sure, you can argue he needed a buff, but what they gave him, the Go Frieza tag units at the time of the anniversary, was just simply too much. This unit was the best unit in the game, undisputably, right? Even after Ultra Vegito dropped for part 3, I personally think he was still better, right? I think that's a solid argument to make right there. But you have to keep in mind that if he didn't get that buff of that magnitude, he wouldn't be as good, or he wouldn't be like used as much as he is used today, right? He's still a popular character, I would say. Like, people love Zenkai buffing the crap out of purple units, and then not only is he purple, but he's a blue. You can Zenkai buff the crap out of both of those tags, right? Or both of those colors, especially with the tags given of being Saiyan and then the LOE, Frieza Force, all that good stuff, right? I am going to say it is a con at the time, but over time, obviously, it has helped him out and stuff like that, right? And then we move on into part 2. We get the dual super banners, and actually, you know, at the time they were pretty good and stuff like that. But in terms of like impact, where are they? Where are they? You're not seeing them at all, bro. And especially, it's crazy too, because you get the superhero collab. Me being like a massive fan of superhero, like, I loved that movie. I loved it, and I could not wait for more units to come out from that movie. We had Gamma 1 and 2, right? Phenomenal. Orange Piccolo. I feel like Orange Piccolo has still yet to see his peak performance. Like, I still feel like they need to give him something. They need to buff him in some way, shape, or form. Even with anything that they've given him so far, it has not been enough. I feel like we still haven't seen the best from him, right? The Gammas were pretty good, and then, but you have to keep in mind, they're a tag unit, but they go from yellow to yellow, right? So you have this strong yellow unit, and then you drop UVB, that's going to hurt them. And ever since then, we've consistently been having strong red units and stuff like that, right? Like right now, we're getting like bombarded by Super 17s and stuff like that. It's hard for the Gammas to really do a lot of stuff in this day and age, right? They're still usable, I would say. Piccolo definitely not as much, especially with PyCon coming out and just straight up replacing that, man. And dude, don't even talk to me about Magenta, bro. Magenta, I feel like people really like enjoyed his animations. His animations, 10 out of 10. I loved seeing Cell Max being implemented in some way, shape, or form. But I just don't think that unit is good. I just simply do not. Like, I feel like people were using him like as a gimmick character. Like, they would use him with the cell, the purple cell, just so they can get AoE damage on top of AoE damage, right? When it comes to Magenta, I'm just like really weird about it. Like, on one hand, like, I'm gonna go ahead and stroke him off for the animations. On the other hand, I just don't think he was that great of a unit, and he didn't have as long of a shelf life as he probably should have had for an anniversary unit. And then you also have the red glasses Gohan, right? He's in his base form and stuff like that. He has a really cool model, good animations and stuff like that. But people continued to use Red Pan over him, so he was also irrelevant. So a lot of so I could sit here and like nitpick these units like all day, but at the end of the day, like, I'm gonna go ahead and just be honest with you. The Go Frieza banner and the UVB banner were easily the best banners to summon on during the time. Right, like, especially if you could see into the future, you're only going to put your CC into those two banners. And then, of course, part 3, we've already like briefly touched on him, is Ultra VB just being an absolute monster. This dude single-handedly got us top grossing, and then he also is the only character in the game to actually have the tap actions, right? The tap actions. It's actually crazy though. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I do think Ultra VB is being outlived by the Go Frieza. I don't know if that's I actually, I don't even think that's a hot take. I think that's just a normal, regular, like, average Joe take right there. Like, what do you guys think? I think Ultra VB is still good. I don't think he's, like, necessarily a bad unit, especially if you have him very high startup. But if you're running into PvP with a 5-star VB, like me, right? My Ultra VB is 5 stars, and you're just going to get clapped. Overall, I personally think that this has still been the best anniversary so far, but the game has just been moving so fast in terms of power creep that it is just difficult for units to keep up. Out of all the characters mentioned within this release, who are you still using? Like, legitimately, I want to know what characters from the 5th anniversary are still getting playtime on your guys' rosters.